We're talking to us.
We're talking to us.
Okay.
As us, to us.
As us, yeah.
Alright.
For us.
Within us.
We the people, for the people.
Deep within us. Okay.
I'm going to keep that in for the intro. Hello, people of the internet. I am KaijuNoir, and this is Shuwatch, Super Dynamic Ultra Force Go. I am here with my trusty sidekick, the son of a bitch Salvadorian himself, David Joshua Hernandez, a.k.a. Gorizard.
Sidekick?
Yeah, you're my sidekick. Whose channel is this show on now?
Bela Lugosi reference.
Fuck you! And here with me is not one, but two guests, one of which is a returning guest, the one that we got a lot of praise for when we had him on the show. Give it up for the return of James Biggie!
Hello. Glad to be back, guys.
And here with us is a friend of James and a recent someone we've recently become acquaintance with, another comic book writer and artist. They are currently working on on his current project, Night of the Fire Beast, which we'll be talking about here on the show. Give it up for Chris Martinez.
Say goodbye to all those accolades.
So yeah, I guess it's best to start off this show by having you guys introduce yourselves and to let people know, give people a good idea as to who you guys are and what you guys have worked on.
Sure.
James, you go first.
No, you go first. This is your show.
The hell it is. I haven't actually worked on that much. The last book that I was on, artist-wise, was an English anthology called To End All Wars. Basically, it was for the 100th year anniversary of World War II in the UK and Europe. Not World War II, World War I in the UK and Europe. And that's actually up for 2 Eisners right now, which is pretty cool.
And that's kind of like, is that supposed to be like the highest achievement one can get when it comes to graphic novels?
Comics, graphic novels in general, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the Oscars of comic books.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing. And I mentioned it before. That is a great thing to have on your resume.
And I was in the book with like 27 other people, but still, we can all claim that.
Right. And let's see. And what other projects have you worked on?
I used to do a lot of gaming art for pen and paper RPGs, like for White Wolf and Steve Jackson Games and stuff like that. I
see. And as for you, James,
yes.
to bring people up to speed, especially for people who would probably not, who we never really introduced you on the last episode you were in. We just like got into it talking about Tammy and the T-Rex and whatnot.
Yeah, I think I just showed up for that one. That was pretty... Yeah, Tammy and the T-Rex, and also didn't Tomoyuki Tanaka pass away? So we were talking about his passing too.
Oh, right, and we also talked about that was at that point like the new 2016 Godzilla film was just announced, so we were talking about that as well. So we never really got a chance. Yes. We talked a little bit of Robot God Akamatsu, but here's your chance to fully to properly introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. James Biggie. I'm a graphic designer and art director. I am the co-creator and scriptwriter for the Shogun Warriors Giant Robot Godzilla kind of homage comic, Robot God Akamatsu. Aside from that, for comics work, I've also done covers for IDW for their Judge Dredd ongoing, G.I. Joe special missions, and this summer I have 4 covers, maybe 5, coming out for the Transformers, which I'm very excited about.
Right. I remember you. Am I allowed to talk about those covers?
Not yet. I was told I gotta wait. They're planning something for them for the release.
Right. So we're not allowed to talk about them. We're not allowed to show them. Nothing like that.
We can just say that I've done them because they were already solicited. But the actual art themselves weren't solicited. But it was solicited saying that I'm doing a retailer incentive for Windblade Combiner Wars, Transformers, and Transformers More Than Meets the Eye.
And
so I'm very psyched for those.
Well, I can't. Since I can't go into detail, I will say that your covers have been some of your finest work.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Right. And so yeah, great to have you guys here, both of you on the show. It's funny, like this episode almost didn't happen, but I'm very glad it is. So I guess to start right off, I did want to talk to you, James, about the reception that we got from the last episode that you were on. And that,
oh, really?
Yeah, and the fact that I think your friend Frankie Washington, I guess was he the one that shared that episode on the Robot God Akamatsu Facebook page?
Yeah, I think he did. Yep.
Yeah. He's just like, I didn't even know this was a thing.
This is the thing.
In my head, I was thinking to myself, damn it, James, you didn't even notify him. We were advertising his own book, and you didn't let him know. But no,
all of a sudden he gets a check for royalties, and he's like, "Hey, this is pretty good."
Hey, my robot is featured on this podcast. What the fuck?
What the?
But yeah, I was really happy. I was really happy that happened, and I was really happy about the feedback. And we even had some feedback from our regular listeners who said that. Who actually wanted to have you come back on the show, just similar to how we've had Jacob Baker here on the show several times for numerous occasions, and I'm really glad that we had this opportunity again. And I know you've seen this. We actually had fan art of my robot fighting your robots.
Yes, by Winter Gaia on DeviantArt.
Right.
He's a fantastic artist.
Oh, most definitely. I've been a fan of that guy, and the fact that he drew my this is like one of the first times I have fan art of my robot. I'm pretty sure you're used to seeing other people draw Robot God Akamatsu, but it's like I saw that, like, one of my fans, shout out to Jacob Spencer, he showed me that DeviantArt link, and I was like, oh my god, I was like fangasming, I was like, oh my god, like my mind was exploding, I was like, holy shit, somebody drew my robots.
It's pretty awesome when you see someone else take, one of your designs and one of your characters and put their own spin on them.
Oh, most definitely, yeah. And this person, he drew your Robot God Akamatsu before, right?
Yes, he has. He definitely has. Yep.
Yeah.
And if I remember, I met him at G-Fest last year too, and I think he said that his secret identity, he's actually like a lawyer or a paralegal. So he says doing that kind of art on the side is great.
That's really awesome.
Great kind of stress release for him.
Yeah, I remember he mentioned on that page where it's like he doesn't normally listen to podcasts, but it's like that one time, it's like the one time he did listen, well, it was listened to one. I'm really grateful that he did listen to ours, and the fact that I guess our audio, just you and me just rambling about, just like inspired him to create that piece.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and so yeah, I'm really happy. We didn't talk to him at his booth, but we did see him, and he was like one booth or two booths away from yours. I remember seeing his I think it was his art piece that featured all the Jaegers from Pacific Rim that I noticed.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I don't think I saw that one.
Let's see.
Where was this last year at G-Fest?
Yeah, last year at G-Fest. I did recognize his work, seeing his work there.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I met that person either.
Well, he came to the booth. Well, he stopped by my table and was talking to me for a little bit, but I didn't realize he had a table there too. To be honest, I think I only made it to that upper level there, the higher echelon, as I was calling it, of artists over there. Mm-hmm. I think I only made up there like once or twice to talk to Matt, Frank, and Zorno and a few of the other guys there. But my favorite thing about G-Fest is, like, it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's like really how nice all the people you end up meeting there are.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
From the creators, from just the other Godzilla fans coming by and talking to you and everything. That's probably my favorite part of G-Fest, and that's why I'm really looking forward to this year again.
Mm-hmm. And depending on how things work out in my life, I don't know whether or not I'll go there, but it's like if I do have the chance, I'll certainly be there again.
I hope so. That'd be great.
Right.
But I also hope for the other thing too more. So it's
Very definitely.
Not being selfish, I hope the other thing works out for you. So
definitely.
I hope it works out so the other thing works out, but then you still have time to go to G-Fest.
Yes.
That would be perfect.
Right, yeah, but then it's really tough because again, it like that. I'll just explain it here. That internship that I applied to, it's just I have to go. It's required that all interns have to attend Comic-Con. So yeah, first world problems.
Sure. Oh yeah, I know, right?
And the thing is, I don't know what I'm not sure if who's in charge of deciding which dates G-Fest falls on, but it's like I don't know whose idea was it to have G-Fest scheduled the same weekend as Comic-Con.
Oh. I didn't realize that.
Sorry, what was that?
Competition.
Right, but it's like, you know, I as much as I love G-Fest, you know, it's like, you can't compete with Comic-Con.
Yeah, I know. Well, especially for you, because you could walk there.
Right, yeah. It's just like, what, like a 10-minute trolley ride over there to downtown San Diego.
Yeah.
It's like, do I want to take an internship that requires me to stay where I am or spend $500 on a crazy road trip to Chicago?
Crazy road trip.
Woo!
Yeah, and plus, do you know what else happens every year at the G-Fest time in Chicago across the street from G-Fest?
No, but I will ask you since you are a Chicagoan.
It's the Exotica convention, the adult film convention.
Oh.
It's always simultaneous to G-Fest.
Oh boy,
imagine. You never see any spillover from that crowd over to ours though.
Never.
Never.
Now that's chaos theory.
Yeah. And it's funny, in our convention it's called G-Fest, so
well the other place
the
other place would be referred to as G-string.
G-string,
G-spot.
Did it
G-spot fest.
That's why nobody ever finds it from Exotica.
Oh, imagine like if some like family were to bring like little Jimmy along to G-Fest and they actually made the wrong turn into the wrong convention.
Oh god.
There's your reboot for a wrong turn right there.
Yeah.
Directed by Roland Emmerich. Has no ties to the original source material.
Oh boy, and that's gonna be the one that's gonna be featured on like Skinemax or whatever. No, it's gonna be like straight to cable or whatever. You know, like whatever. It's gonna be featured on HBO. No theatrical release for that version of the film. Yeah, I don't know how how Bill, Dylan, and I missed that. I had no idea that happened.
G-Fest after dark.
Yeah, G-Fest.
It was like screw the Akira Ifukube concert. Let's go over there. Woo!
Let's go over to G-Fest. Yeah.
Well, and that's also the same place where they have the Wizard World Chicago, and they have ASEN anime convention, and ASEN is 24 hours. I don't know if any of you guys have been, but like in the middle of the night, they have screening rooms for porn anime.
Oh God,
I see.
It's all furries watching hentai.
So you just actually, I'm scared. I'm moving on.
This conversation took a turn.
It didn't take a turn. It started there. There was no turn.
It was already on the road.
Turns? Yes. We're going. There are no turns.
Every Denny's for like 3 miles around is filled with cosplayers in the middle of the night, being awkward.
Oh, well, that's kind of like convention. That's like the convention atmosphere in general. Just a lot of really socially awkward people who are coming out of their houses for the first time in ages.
It's true.
Yeah, but that's part of the charm, though. You know?
I guess so. True. Yeah. Although I gotta say, like the most normal people that Bill and Dylan and I met were like mostly people like you, James, in the artist alley.
Yeah. That's saying something.
We're weird on a totally different level than most fans.
Yeah.
We're like high functioning. We're like high functioning weird people.
Yeah.
Able to have some semblance of a normal life.
Well, at least we put that out. It looks like we have a normal life, but
it's all an illusion.
It's all an illusion. There is no spoon.
Inception.
I'm going deeper, Leo. So, I wanted to bring this up. So, Chris, I really wanted to bring up the new project that you are working on, the Night of the Fire Beast. And
yes.
We were talking to David about this, just giving him like a basic overview as to what this kaiju comic book is. And I just gotta say, I gotta tell this to the audience that I've told David that this is pretty much one of the most meta-fictional kaiju. This is one of the most meta-fictional takes on a kaiju comic I have ever heard of. And I'm surprised, no one has ever come up with it. It's one of those things where, it's such a simple idea, but it's, brilliant because it's, so unique.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well,
it's awesome. I love it.
So, Chris, would you like to explain to the audience what Night of the Fire Beasts is?
It is. At the most basic level, it's a fairly straightforward kaiju comic in more of a 1950s black and white style, but the meta concept comes in that it's actually an actual movie, and you're not so much reading the comic, but watching the movie. So you can see all the cheesy special effects, the wires, the seams in the costumes, and it's part of an overall concept that takes up 3 books in 3 different styles. The 50s style, and it leads into the Japanese tokusatsu style, and finally the modern reboot of the original 50s movie.
And would this reboot be modeled after the 90s Godzilla reboot or the 2014 reboots, big budget Hollywood action?
Yeah, kind of a cross between the big budget Hollywood with a little bit of the Godzilla 85.
Mm-hmm. And do you plan on giving Dorugan as little screen time as possible for that last one?
It depends on how hard he is to draw at that point.
Yeah. You're going to decide to give him gills and short spines, give him body proportions that many may consider as fat.
Yeah, he'll be chunky, and there'll be an annoying child in it, and
yes.
Some guy.
Will he befriend a giant robot?
Perhaps.
Will he shake hands with said robot?
Will said robot give him the thumbs up?
Actually, that's going to be in the second book, the Tokusatsu one, that James is actually going to be writing with me.
Right.
Woohoo!
So, as you mentioned before to me, the first book that you are working on, that you're planning on releasing at G-Fest, it's basically kind of like this American, in this metafictional continuity or this alternate universe where this fictional film franchise exists that you are drawing in comic book form. The first book story is basically an adaptation or sort of a fictional Z-grade, low-budget, American-made monster movie, similar in quality to the Giant Claw, right?
Exactly. The fictional director, producer of the movie wanted to cash in on the popularity of some of the other monster movies and basically wanted to do knockoff movies to make a quick buck. And that's how Night of the Fire Beast came about.
Would this fictional director kind of be your universe's equivalent of Bird Eye Gordon?
Yeah, Bird Eye Gordon or
Roger Corman?
Yeah, I wouldn't even put him in the same league as Corman, because Corman actually tried to make movies as good as he could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This character, Williamson, actually didn't care about the quality of it. And I think it's one of the quotes in the Origin pseudo-wiki that we made where he didn't hire a director because he figured anyone could do that kind of crap.
Uh-huh. Filmmaking at its finest.
Yes.
And
which didn't lead to anything good, and the movie bombed, and he was forced to sell the property to a Japanese studio, which is where the second book comes in.
Right. And the idea that you approach... Am I allowed to talk about the idea as to how James is going to write this?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure I talked to James about that briefly, so he should know.
Yes.
James is like, what now?
Wait, I'm writing in the what? In the who?
So it's like, so at the second, in this fictional history, the Fire Beast is renamed Dorugan, which is pretty much your he's like your Godzilla stand-in for this franchise, am I right?
Yeah.
And so in this second installment, in this like universe, the rights to that monster has been given over, the film rights of that monster has been given over to Japan. So this story, this second comic book or story, will feature a Japanese produced Dorugan movie, which is being localized or what would you say? Yeah, localized for an American audience in the same fashion that a lot of Japanese movies, TV shows, and anime were produced for an American audience. Where I thought his idea was genius, because like a lot of those old movies and TV shows, animes, where it's like the American writers were never given a properly translated script of the Japanese dialogue and whatnot, so they pretty much had to write off the top of their heads based on the visuals alone. And I guess that's kind of how we got shows like, I don't know, like Samurai Pizza Cats or Voltron or whatever.
Holy shit, I totally forgot about that. Samurai Pizza.
I know Samurai Pizza Cat, that's how that show turned out. I'm not sure if other classic anime like Voltron was ever like done through that same process.
I know Voltron was heavily edited, because the original is really dark and gory and bloody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I always forget, whenever Voltron would, cut one of the
monsters?
What do they call the monsters? Yeah, they had a certain name, though. Robies. Whenever they cut the Robies in half, it was always kind of like something was always squirting out of them. I wonder if they did they go in and recolor the blood or something? Because it always struck me odd.
Would they ever go so far as to edit go that far in terms of the editing back then?
That's a good... I watched a few of the episodes of Go Lion on Crunchyroll, and I didn't notice, because I just remember them exploding.
Because I think it was earlier this year, I recently, out of the blue, I decided to watch the first 4 or 5 episodes of Voltron, because it's been so long since I used to watch it growing up on Toonami. And looking at...
Growing up on Toonami, oh my god, I just suddenly had a pang of feeling really old.
I'm sorry, James, for being born in a different in a later decade than you.
Later decades, I think, right?
Yeah, like, my first anime was Dragon Ball Z!
Oh, wait, congratulations on graduation, by the way.
Oh, sorry, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. It was very heartfelt when you guys messaged me on, or commented on Facebook. Thank you so much. Yes. For those of you on the audience who don't know, I graduated. I'm finally free of that damn place. I'm free from the system. Now comes the hard part.
Yeah.
Now comes finding a job. All right. So, but yeah, sorry to get distracted. But yeah, I was watching the.
Sorry, I got you guys off track.
No problem. That's pretty much what we do best. So, as with Voltron, I was watching the first 5 episodes, and I noticed that when it came to the dialogue, looking at how the dialogue was executed in that show, I noticed that numerous occasions where it's even though I had never seen the original Beast King Go Lion before, just listening to them and looking at the context in which the dialogue was said, I was I could tell that a lot of this dialogue was either improvised or was simply not the original dialogue from those scenes. There was an instance where the main character, he lands in a pile of bones, and from looking at his gestures, he looks like he's praying for those people, praying for the people whose skeletons he landed on. Whereas in Voltron, the English dialogue, he said, while he's clasping his hands together, he says, "I sure hope we make it out of here alive."
Yeah, and I've watched that, and he was praying for the people whose bones it was.
Right.
And the first
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The first 15 minutes of Go Lion is brutal. Like, one of the slave ships comes back while the 5 space pilots are captured. I don't remember what the villain's name was, but they're separating these people they captured to go be either robeasts. I think they call them black something monsters in Go Lion. And then the people who weren't fit to be robeasts were going to be butchered and used to feed them.
Ugh.
I think that element was still there in Voltron, where it's like it was simply a gladiatorial battle between like the poor rejects fighting the robeasts themselves.
Yeah, and the ones that didn't fight were already made into food.
Ooh, I don't think I saw that part.
Yeah, there was one scene where there was a giant cauldron full of body parts.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh boy, and I'm sorry to go on this tangent because we were talking about the second book, but when it came to Voltron, it's like a lot shows like Voltron and Speed Racer and Robotech. They fascinate me so much in that these are Americanized versions whose stories and characters have, to an extent, deviated from the original Japanese source material. So much so that these American versions have taken on a life of their own. To where it's like, I would say, like, I guess Voltron is a lot more popular here in America than Go Lion is in Japan.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, I'd agree with that.
And so much so, it's like, even like when people are trying to make a movie adaptation of these animes, like, we've already got a Speed Racer movie, and for years we've been hearing talks about a Robotech movie and a Voltron movie, and these are movies based on the American versions of these shows.
Yeah.
So it's like, if we ever get that Robotech movie, we're not going to see the main character from Macross. We're going to see Rick Hunter there.
Rick Hunter, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so weird. I find it so weird and fascinating to see that sort of thing take place.
Yeah. It's Power Rangers all over again.
Oh yeah. Well, basically this was the Power Rangers before Power Rangers became a thing.
Well, even the Transformers, though, the Transformers that we know as, Optimus Prime and Jazz and all the original G1 characters, they came from a Japanese line that was an offshoot of Microman.
Right, and I forgot. I know
they were called Diaclone.
Oh, okay, that name was familiar.
And they all came with little pilots and everything. So they were all characters from a completely different toy line. And then Hasbro bought the rights to produce the figures. I might be. In case my facts aren't correct here. And then they hired Marvel. And then they hired Marvel to kind of flesh out the backstories for all these characters. And I think Jim Shooter called Denny O'Neil and asked, I don't know the whole story, but Denny O'Neil essentially came up with the name for Optimus Prime. And I think a few of the other, G1 first-tier characters.
Mm-hmm. And I guess another example this is like another toy line where it's like the Shogun Warriors, where they took a lot of these really classic 70s anime robots like a Great Mazinger, Getter Robo G, Raideen, Guy King.
Yep.
And, they gave them slightly different names, and the Marvel Comics gave them like a different backstory. And so I remember way back when that Guy King teaser concept trailer came out, there were rumors that they were trying to create like a cinematic Shogun Warriors universe.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Oh, totally, man. Yeah. And I guess the modern day equivalent to those examples of like the Americanized version being more popular would as David mentioned Power Rangers, where we've already had a Power Rangers movie before. That, what was it, like 97, 98? I'm pretty sure that would have confused the fuck out of the Japanese audiences when they see like the white Die Ranger hanging out with the Jew Rangers piloting the mecha, the ninjas, the robot from Kaku Ranger.
Yeah.
Fighting a villain that they've never seen before, while also seeing what's her name, Bandora from Jew Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once again, we're gonna get a new Power Rangers movie in January of 2017, and once again, it seems based on that leaked concept art, it looks like it's going to be clearly based off of the original Mighty Morphin. So again, this is based on the Americanized version of that thing that became popular in America.
Yep.
Just wondering, have you guys had a chance to see that leaked concept art?
Not me.
No. For the Power Rangers?
Yeah, I'll share it to both of you on Facebook right now if you get if you guys have a chance.
I have not had a chance to see that yet.
All right, because now they've all been taken down, but luckily I saved those images before all the articles took them down. So there you go, James. And sending it to you.
I never got into the Power Rangers.
Uh-huh.
I remember when I was in college and everyone rushed home because they thought it was going to be something really cool. And we were all in our 20s already at that point, so we were like, what the fuck is this? We didn't realize until we started watching that it was made for little kids.
Yeah, pretty much like
just went back to watch it.
Pretty much stupid children like David and I.
Well, the funny thing with that, too, I think I was in high school when... Somebody's going to have to change our Depends, Chris. Well, it's funny though. Like with the Power Rangers now too, though. My son, who's 6, he is kind of burned through the original run of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and now he's kind of moved on to more like Godzilla type movies. But still, what doesn't appeal to a little kid? A giant robot and these kung fu guys, karate champions piloting them.
Oh yeah, definitely. It kind of combines superheroes with giant robots and giant monsters. Yeah. It's like all these different facets of awesomeness wrapped up into one show. And I'm just wondering, were you guys ever aware of Super Sentai before Power Rangers came into the picture?
Not me. I had first heard about it in an article in Wizard magazine when they talked about that in the original Japanese Spider-Man TV show. Mm-hmm. Which during the 90s, I was a humongous Spider-Man fan. I still am, but during high school and whatnot, I was crazy into him. So I tried to find bootlegs of the Japanese Spider-Man show. I remember that was the first time I heard that. Because when I watched Power Rangers, I watched like 1 or 2 episodes. I'm like, why does the film looks so completely different from when they're fighting the giant robot to when they're with the kids in Angel Grove there. Mm-hmm. And after reading that magazine, that was when I first realized, it's an Americanization, like King Kong versus Godzilla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't even knew about Super Sentai probably until I was in high school, between 2006 to 2010, and yeah, it pretty much blew my mind. I was like, holy shit, this came from Japan?
Yep.
Although you mentioned before, like the film grain is very different. Sometimes whenever Rita would talk, the lips don't match what the actress is saying. Like there were a lot of clues that say, hey, this was not an American product.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. To finally reel our way back to what I originally wanted to talk about. So Chris, for the reason why we went into that whole entire tangent of stuff being Americanized, that's different from the source material. Chris, as you've told me, for the second story of Dorugan, you've mentioned how to replicate that whole experience of a writer attempting to create something without knowing the original dialogue. You mentioned how you're going to draw the entire comic and then have James write it based on the visuals alone.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, it's funny though, but Jack Kirby and Stan Lee used to do that a lot too. Jack Kirby would draw the panels, and then Stan Lee would write the the dialogue.
Oh yeah,
right afterwards.
That was the Marvel method at that point.
Yep.
Then the only difference with this is that James has license to make the dialogue kind of goofy and forced.
That does pertain to my next question for James, where in order to what do you think you would have to do in order to replicate like a 60s style of writing?
Oh God.
Sorry to put you on the spot right here.
Yeah, no, good question. Well, it's funny.
Like, I have to watch a lot of Johnny Sacco.
Yeah, that, and I've been watching, the American version of King Kong versus Godzilla a lot with my son lately. So I think that kind of brand of humor might kind of creep into it a little bit.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That kind of like, gee whiz, oh, hey, look, I made this incredibly strong wire. Wow, look at me, I'm going to hang out,
Yeah. Are you gonna imagine like extremely like stereotypical Asian accents coming out of these characters' voices?
No,
Oh no! What are we going to do now?
No, it probably won't be that. It'll probably, if anything, one thing I always noticed with like the dubs with King Kong vs. Godzilla, and even some of the English dubs for the Heisei films, is that they all seem to have like almost a New Zealand style accent to them. I don't know where they record, do the recording, the dubbing sessions for them, but they always seem like they have like a New Zealand or an Australian accent sometimes.
Interesting.
Maybe that might seep in. I don't know yet. I gotta finish writing Volume 2 of RGA first.
Yeah, anything's good. And that's why this came about, because I asked James, and he said, well, I'm really busy, and, we can try. I'm like, I'll just draw the whole thing, and then you write it, and it'll come out sounding really dubbed.
It'll come out fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It has all the standards. Like, there's the science core. I haven't even named it yet, but, the Japanese hero, and then his younger sister who's dating the tall blonde American guy.
Yeah, the Nick Adams character.
I'm trying to think of a name that'll call to mind Nick Adams, but not be Nick Adams.
Rick Gaddams. Let's see. How about
Dick Abrams?
Dick Abrams,
yeah.
Yes.
Dick Abrams.
Somebody remember that, because we'll have to use that.
All right, I'll message you right now that name.
Dick Abrams.
Now you can put now you can put David as a writer.
No, you know what? I'm gonna PayPal you $5, and that way I can own that.
I will accept those $5.
I will accept your $5, sir. You know what would be wild, though, is at some point, like, we did, like, the original Japanese uncut version of it.
I think I may have mentioned that to Chris as well. It's like, you can have that as, like, what was it? Oh, damn, what was it? Like an alternate version that's for free online. It's like, but if you want to know the real version, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then we'll just make all the type in Japanese.
Yeah, so nobody...
Yes, that's ingenious. They can't read it, so
fantastic.
There's no other way to know what's technically going on by buying it.
Oh, well, you want to buy it, there you go.
Yeah.
You want to know what they're saying, or you want to know what an American writer thinks that they're saying?
See, there you go. They can't read it, so they have to buy the other one that's actually for sale.
That's right.
Yeah. The marketing machine.
Right. It's like, oh, it's so great I can have the English dub of King Kong vs. Godzilla on Blu-ray, but I have to have a crappy bootleg of the original uncut. Without any of the extra American scenes added in.
Yep. And also, you would probably have to make it make the original Japanese text version. You have to make it look like an old film, so the art doesn't have to be as good. It's kind of like deteriorated.
Yeah.
I can handle that. I'm totally all about having my art be not as good.
Just make copies of your art, and then just crumple them up, or splat mud on them, and then try to clean the mud off, and there we go. Here's an old this is an old reel that survived when the original studio burned, and this was the last surviving reel. So be grateful for this condition.
That's what is it, Godzilla versus the werewolf thing?
Right.
Yeah, legendary beast Wolfman.
Werewolf, yeah. What is that? So, I'm totally I have no clue what that's all about.
Okay.
Was that a fan film, or was that a real thing, or?
The guy who made it worked for Toho, but he made it in his spare time, right?
Oh.
Right, yeah. We, Bill, Dillion, and I, we attended a panel for Kaiju Gaiden, which was a documentary that was successfully funded on Kickstarter last year. Yep. That pertained to a lot of independent kaiju films, a lot of which I've already reviewed on my channel. Mm-hmm. And for a lot the biggest selling point of that documentary and during that panel was the the fan film Legendary Beast Wolfman versus Godzilla, where I believe it was I forgot how many hours of footage they shot, but they never really it was something that this person made for himself and his friends, I believe, but it was never given a wide distribution. And for years, it's always been kind of like a rumored of this magical this fan film that no one has ever seen before until 2013's G-Fest, where I believe 5 minutes of the film was shot, or 5 minutes of the film, like a film reel was showcased at G-Fest, and at that panel, we got to see that same 5 minutes of footage again, and the director mentioned that, or they told the people behind the documentary told us, because they've been in touch with the director a lot, considering how that's the main showpiece for the project. They mentioned that the director is planning to actually edit together all his footage to make a legit feature film cut of his fan film, and that as of last year, they were currently in talks with Toho about possibly releasing that movie on Blu-ray.
Oh, fantastic!
Is it just going to be?
I remember in 2013.
Go ahead.
Okay, James.
Oh no! I was just saying. I remember the guy I met, the Wolf Beast, at 2013. I think he was walking around the convention floor.
Uh-huh.
That was all I was going to add. I didn't mean. That was all I had. I got nothing.
And as for you,
I met the legendary. I was a middle-aged kaiju fan.
As you were saying, Chris.
I wonder if it's going to be all monster footage, or if they've actually shot human footage for it too.
I have seen human footage from that brief clip show that they showed, and it featured people fighting a human-sized wolfman. Werewolf.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I don't know how he grew. If that's the same legendary beast wolfman that grows tall enough to fight Godzilla or not. But
what was Jet Jaguar's excuse? Oh, he just rewired himself or something.
He must have programmed himself to grow extra large.
Yes, he just reprogrammed himself.
Right.
If it worked for Frankenstein, it can work for the Wolfman.
Yeah.
Sure. Now that would be amazing if have remake Frankenstein versus the Wolfman Toho style. I know Matt Frank drew a piece like that for one Halloween, and that was ingenious. Let's see, where was I going to go with this? For this year's G-Fest, they're going to have a 28-minute trailer for Legendary Beast Wolfman versus Godzilla.
I don't understand that. How is a trailer 28 minutes? Isn't that practically the whole film?
I thought they only had 16 minutes of the film anyway.
I think. Apparently they have enough footage to make a feature for the director to edit together a feature-length version. So I'm assuming that they must have more footage than they let on.
Huh.
But yeah, to have a 28-minute trailer, might as well say this is the clip show version of the movie.
They probably just pulled the George Lucas and made new footage.
Yeah, it's why does this all look so clean all of a sudden? Yeah. But anyways, to get back to Dorugan, I'm loving how Dorugan is kind of the one thing that's kind of the outline for this whole entire thing so far.
Yep.
So.
But we don't want to forget Robot God Akamatsu, though.
Definitely. We got into quite a bit of detail last time with Robot God Akamatsu, but we can definitely go back to there after we, because I really want to cover what it is that you plan to do for the third story in this trilogy of yours.
Oh, right. The modern reboot sort of sequel. And it's going to be based very similar to the Godzilla 2014, more dramatic and more big special effects. It won't look like an obvious B movie at that point. Mm-hmm. But one of the two main characters from the first book will be reprising his role as the same character, now elderly, in the modern version. Mm-hmm. So kind of what was his name? Why can't I think of the American guy from Godzilla now?
Oh, Perry Mason himself.
Yeah, Perry.
Perry Mason, or him.
Raymond Burr. Yes, I was almost forgetting as well.
All of us.
Aaron Burr. No, wait,
that's not good for us.
Steve Martin, the comedian.
Yes. Someone should edit in like an arrow through the head in every Raymond Burr scene in Godzilla.
Yes.
Get on that, Andres.
My photoshopping skills aren't that good. Oh well, here I go.
You have till tomorrow night to deliver it to us.
Yes.
Or else we will find you, and we will kill you.
Well, I don't know if we'll kill you.
We have a particular set of skills. Skills that may not hurt you in any way. Skills that mostly involve drawing pictures. I don't know why I brought this up as a threat.
We can draw pictures of you in very, very unflattering situations.
Curse you, artists! Your ability to come to bring to life anything you imagine.
It's funny you mention that because I have a whole folder of Photoshop images of Andre right here for just such an occasion.
It's gonna be.
It's maybe one other occasion, but we won't get into that. He actually had all those photos like on the inside of one of his portfolios last year. Like if you open up one book, it was just like a complete montage.
It's like,
Andre.
He didn't even know I existed back then. How is this possible?
You existed only in a dream.
That's not true. That's impossible.
He's known you existed for a long time.
I've been Obi-Wan to you. I've been watching you from a distance, but not in a weird way.
Oh boy! So
how could it not be in a weird way?
Well, I guess that's what they're gonna outline in the Obi-Wan Kenobi trilogy of Star Wars films, which I guess that they're going to be producing.
I did hear about that.
It's going to take place between episode 3 and 4.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see what he's been doing on Tatooine that whole time.
Aside from being a dick. Yeah. That crazy old wizard.
Yo, hanging out with Ewoks and shit, getting drunk at the cantina bar. Why does that band always play the same music?
Freebird, man, Freebird.
Oh no, bust out the drunk Orson Welles. The French, the French. What the fuck is he talking about? What the hell is French in this galaxy? But anyways, I know James, you unfortunately have to go in just a moment. But before you leave, would you like to briefly give an update on Volume 2 of Robot God Akamatsu?
Oh, okay. So I think when last we spoke, I kind of given you like a high-level kind of outline for Volume 2. Stuff in Boston has reached kind of status quo. Giant monsters are almost a weekly or bi-weekly occurrence. Mm-hmm. So this one is kind of like where the first one was kind of taken. We had Uru and Akamatsu. These other dimensional warlords who were kind of, we had a little bit of Atlantis, a little bit of the history of Atlantis. And this one is really going to be kind of like an all-out monster fight in every issue. So it's going to be a little bit more action-oriented, a little bit more fast-paced. There is going to be, like the first one, each issue is going to start off with a flashback that's going to give you little clues to what's happening in the present. Only this time it's going to be back in the dimension that Uru and Akamatsu come from, the abandoned plane. So we're going to see how they kind of rose to power there. And how their little machinations and whatnot, their huge machinations and whatnot are leading to the kaiju taking over the world currently in Volume 2.
And when do you expect this might be released?
Well, we spoke with our publisher, so I'm going to turn in all the scripts to Frankie to start drawing by September 1st. So hopefully early next year. Okay. Spring next year, 2016.
Has any concept art or poster art or the script has been completed in any sort of fashion?
I've got 3 scripts that I think are in good shape. I'm going to send them over to Frankie soon. I'm hoping to send them over to him before G-Fest. Mm-hmm. There is actually one issue that Frankie wrote and drew himself, which we haven't released any of the preview art from it, but I have some of the original art, and I can ask Frankie if I can take a quick picture of that.
All right, excellent. And speaking of showing art that showing never before seen art, I'd just like to post up here like the cover art that you are doing, or is it cover art or back art for Night of the Fire Beast? Cover art. Yep. Okay, so here it is, audience. Like the I guess the grand reveal. Look at this thing right here.
Lifting up the kimono. Here it is.
This one thing that no one on Skype can possibly see, but the audience can see at the moment. Check this out.
Let's all take a moment and
bask in its glory.
Its black and whiteness. I can really appreciate the blackness of it. The black and whiteness of it.
I feel it reflects the blackness.
Nothing is more black than the actual color black.
I can see it staring into my soul. It reflects my blackened soul after all these years. There's something mesmerizing about it.
It's funny. I've never actually done a pure. Well, no, I take that back. I was gonna say I've never done like a pure black and white piece, but there is one Godzilla poster I did. So I've been slowly working on. Yeah, the with the oxygen destroyer.
Yeah.
So I've been slowly working on that poster series of minimalist Godzilla posters, without actually showing Godzilla in any of them.
I do want to say, like, after purchasing that Jet Jaguar print from you, next time I see and meet you in person, I really want to buy the one with the oxygen destroyer.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so save me one if I do go to G-Fest this year.
I will indeed.
And will you bring more copies of Robot God Akamatsu so that people like me won't leave G-Fest empty-handed?
And also me.
Oh, actually, that's right.
Weren't we talking the other day, Andre, about how we both finally got our copies from Amazon?
Right. Well, yes. James never offered me a copy because, I'm pretty sure he wanted my money like anyone else.
Oh, I'm totally going to give him my money. In fact,
me too.
I think I only had one. I think I only managed to scrape up one copy because it actually takes a couple of days to print them through Amazon now. So I think the one that I brought with me was my last copy. So I don't even think I have a copy of it, if you can believe it.
I think
that's how rare they're becoming. There's also a hardcover edition with a cover by Frankie.
Right, that's the one I have.
Oh, okay, you got the hardcover. Excellent.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to go all the way for Biggie here.
Phrasing?
Go all in.
So I guess the last thing I want to say is, James, being that you've found quite a lot of success with Robot God Akamatsu, what sort of advice you would like to give for anyone who is interested in pursuing their own goal of publishing or getting their own comic book out there?
That would actually be me. Give me some advice.
Yeah. Well, you really can't, kind of, it sounds super cliche, but you can't kind of give up on that. You're going to get a lot of, rejection notices. You're going to get a lot of, that's great, but it's not what we're looking for right now. You're going to have to go through a lot of that, but then when you finally get that first, we're going to run one of your covers, or we're going to run one of your stories, or we're going to print this, we're going to print that, we want to use you for this project and so forth, then that ends up being, the big reward there. Because I remember, I think I first sent my first piece of art to IDW back in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent it to the letters at IDW Publishing, and I think it was actually Chris Ryall who wrote me back, which I wasn't expecting. And he really liked what I had sent him, and it was a concept for, at the time, the big series they were running was All Hail Megatron, and it was kind of like a spoof or homage to the Vertigo poster by Saul Bass. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that poster. It's got the white spiral and the two black shapes kind of falling into it.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I just, I'd always sent stuff to them. I said, hey, I have some new work. Do you guys mind seeing it? I'd always email first asking if it was all right if I sent them stuff, because they, they say it pretty frankly on their website, we don't accept unsolicited artwork.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to just really keep at it. You can't let yourself get discouraged by, the rejection letters or the people who, maybe, don't really care if you send them stuff or not, and there were a bunch of them too, that I received, from all over the place. Yeah, I guess that's kind of it. Just don't let yourself get discouraged by, the eventual rejection notices you'll get, because, in time you'll get the acceptance letters, and that's going to be like pretty fantastic. It took me, I've always wanted to do comics since I was, read Transformers #1 by Marvel. So Transformers was kind of my gateway drug to comics. So what was that? 1984, and I had my first cover published in 2012. So how many years is that? 30. I can't math. I can't math tonight. However, 35 plus years or whatever it took me to finally get to, kind of live that dream.
Mm-hmm. And we're all very happy for your success and how far you've gotten here. Now here you are, making alternate covers, exclusive, rare covers for Transformers.
Rare covers that hopefully people will buy.
Oh, I'll try to track them down.
Oh no, I already earmarked. I get a couple of comp copies. Hopefully I'll get them. I know the first one will be out by G-Fest. The other ones are coming out like pretty much a week.
Oh, right.
After that, so. But I'll see what I can snag for you guys.
That is very awesome. You don't have to do that, but I will gladly accept it.
Excellent. I will always accept free stuff.
Yes. It pays to know people.
Indeed.
Although it's always funny to show off to your friends like an exclusive cover and say, "Hey, I that guy who made this cover, I'm friends with that guy. I know someone in the comic books industry."
And I'm not just friends with that guy.
It's not. It's like, no, seriously, I'm friends with that guy. Why are you looking at? Well, I know him on Facebook.
Facebook friends.
Facebook. I'm Facebook friends with that guy.
No, you met me IRL, so that counts.
Yeah,
that counts, man.
I guess so. Yeah. Oh boy. David, before I know you haven't talked in a while, but before James goes, do you have any questions for him?
I forgot all my questions.
Yes, my last name really is Biggie.
All of this.
My last name is not my nickname. It's really my last name.
Right. Well, is there anyone you would consider the Smalls to your Biggie?
Well, we'll see that for podcast part 3.
Totally. Yeah. Or maybe that episode of SOS interview if Bill ever gets around to that.
Yeah.
Well,
actually, just keep sending me lots of reminders.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll send you a message like every hour on the hour this time.
Just hey you. Hey. Okay.
And remember to check your messages.
That's right. Well, now it's turned on. I can see both of you guys sitting right there. The little green dot and everything.
You know what we should do for the next Robot God, James, is I'm going to try and get that song professionally recorded in the studio.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, Andres, can you play that?
Yes.
I'll the podcast?
Yes, I'll play that for our commercial break. So without further ado, we bid goodbye to James, and we'll see you, the audience, next time. We'll see you, sorry, I'm going to repeat that again. We bid adieu to James Biggie, and we'll see you guys after the break. And we're back after the break for the last section of Shuwatch, Super Dynamic Ultra Force Go. I don't know why I always mess up on the title. Then again, I'm not very good with talking off the top of my head, and I tend to just ramble and stutter like just right now. But anyways, we are here in a Biggie list section, but Chris is still here with David and I. And so what I wanted to talk about, Chris, was I know that you're in a band and you have you have an experience with music. And I want to generally know where you got your start with that band, or just how you came to learn of how to play music in general.
Oh, I've been playing since I was 13. I play guitar in the band, and so that's 30 years now. And I didn't start in bands until I was in my 30s. And,
I see.
Yeah, I've always played, but just never played or performed live. And this band, the Alder Kings, is like my third or fourth band, but we've been around, we're going on 4 years now.
I see.
Yeah, it's all like heavy instrumental surf music, all based on like horror movies and giant monsters and science fiction.
So I guess you guys have a similar taste in film?
Oh, well, that's mainly me. The other two guys just kind of indulge me with the titling. Whenever we write something, I'll just say, okay, we're gonna call that one Horror of the Deep, and they're like, all right. So
I guess like you're like the movie buff of the group.
Yeah, for that. Like they've come up with some concepts, and name concepts. I mean, for songs. But more often than not, I pull something out that's really weird and goofy, and they just nod and go along with it and put up with me.
I'm going to call this one The Demons from Outer Space.
Yeah, they're very tolerant.
And
fantastic musicians and super tolerant with me and my oddness.
Are they aware of your artistic skills?
Oh, yeah. I did the cover for our second album.
Ooh, nice.
My wife actually did the cover for the first album. Yeah. So, yeah, they're totally weird. In fact, my bass player, Tony, always tries to get me to draw us, and I just never do.
I guess I'm assuming you just haven't had much experience with drawing people in general?
Oh, no, that's what I draw constantly. I just
all right, I'm an idiot because you drew the comic.
So
you just haven't gotten around to it, just like laziness, or just like you just don't want to.
Like I have a harder time doing that because I'm even more of a perfectionist. So I'll work on something and then I won't be happy with it, so I'll trash it.
I see.
Yeah. But who knows? I'm going to be doing the cover to the third album probably. So unless I can get James Biggie. I heard Biggie's really good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, he's like I mentioned before with you, where it's like, well, I love it. He makes like great poster art where it's very like simple, to the point. And it's just like using as little imagery as possible, but still leave a big impact with what you see in the end result. Like the one work art piece that he did was the one based on Pacific Rim, where it's that image that says "Never drift alone."
Yep.
I really like because it's like something that's like a clear reference to the movie, and you would have to be a fan to really appreciate that imagery.
Yeah, and it's really fun to look at James' work just because it's we're totally opposite as artists.
Right. He's very minimalist, and you're very into detail.
Yeah, which is weird because I'm not really into detail. I just like put a lot of textures in. But if you look closely at my stuff, it's mostly black.
Right. Well, I noticed with a lot of the artwork that I've seen, it seems like you enjoy working primarily with black and white.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
Oh, I do color. I've just been focusing more on the black and white lately because it's more fun.
Do you think that drawing in black and white plays to your strengths?
I think so. the more the high contrast stuff. And when I do color and paint, it's all also high contrast. So it's pretty similar, just a little bit simpler in the actual black and white like line art.
And what do you think are like some of the advantages to having such a high contrast between black and white solely?
I think if the work does go into color, it makes it a little easier for coloring. But I don't know that there's any advantages or disadvantages over other less contrasty styles. I think it's just different. And, maybe sometimes I can hide some stuff if I don't want to draw it.
And when you were working on your craft and learning to I guess become more proficient in more proficient in black and white, have you ever looked at other black and white art, other artists that specialize in black and white for inspiration, like say Frank Miller or Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman?
Not specifically. I'm more almost totally like a Mike Mignola, Tim Bradstreet kind of guy. Those kind of high contrast, and they're totally different. But so and they're not specifically black and white, but more like the high contrast than specifically black and white. If that makes, I could also be rambling now.
No, you're still making sense. More sense than I ever make, like right now for that instance. But I do want to ask.
I said I'm a horrible guest.
No, you're not. You don't give yourself enough credit. When it came to your art, well, you mentioned those two artists. Are they also, I guess, in terms of your art style, what has been your biggest inspiration in terms of like your art style and how you draw?
I don't want to sound like pretentious, but I did a lot of life drawing when I was in school, and I still like life drawing. And I'll shoot reference photos and light everything, like a movie if I need to. So that's really come across as far as my style. But for drawing and comic style, most of it's Mike Mignola. But I can never draw like loose and cartoony like Mike Mignola. It all comes out more realistic. So I guess it's kind of a combination of those two things.
I see. And let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to ask, what originally got you into drawing or into art?
I'm one of those guys who's always done it. My mother was an artist, and she never got to go to art school or anything, but she always drew anyway. So I started when I was really, really young and just never stopped. So like everyone knew that that's what I was going to do, at least in some form, when I grew up. So I was always drawing like doodles or like copying from comics. I mean, it's a similar story to a lot of other comic artists. You do it because you have to do it. Like you can't stop doing it.
And
that's why. That's why. Like, regardless of publisher for Fire Beast, I'm still glad. And with the internet now, you can publish something online with no overhead, so it'll get out there at some point for some.
And I guess when you were growing up, what was the thing that you always loved drawing the most?
It's funny because I didn't draw a lot of monsters. I drew a lot of more like Sergeant Rock, Haunted Tank, like historical stuff, which was nerdy even for a nerdy kid. My first stuff was Haunted Tank and Sergeant Rock and like Army at War, like all those comics. And I don't know why I was into that, but that's all the first stuff that I drew up until I discovered Godzilla and like anime, like Voltron, like we were talking about before.
Right. And I guess it's kind of funny how, like, I guess Godzilla's been like the one thing that's kind of united the majority of us. And so I guess my next question for you would be like, how did you came across Godzilla, and what was it that about it that made you a fan of this franchise, or just giant monster, or what got you into giant monsters in general?
The thing that got me into it is the thing that most people hate, which was the what is it, 1976 King Kong.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, my dad took me to that. 'Cause when I was younger, back in my day, before we had all the fancy cable TV and internet, you had to wait for movies to come on TV. You know, you had to look in the TV guide and see what was coming up that week. And if you wanted to watch a monster movie, you didn't really have much choice but to wait for what you got. So when I was younger, my dad would actually tell me the story of the original King Kong. And that was my first sort of giant monster introduction. So when we got to the point where was it, De Laurentiis?
Yeah, Dino De Laurentiis, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first thing I ever saw, and that was it for me, because I don't care what anybody says about that movie, that it's still awesome for me.
Right. I know a lot of people who grew up with that movie, they still love it to this day. I know my mom, she was born in '68, and she adores that movie, and she loved, like, I forgot what the name of that actress in that movie. Was it Jessica Lange? Yeah, Jessica Lange. Yeah, she loved Jessica Lange, and she always because of King Kong, she always loved like gorillas and chimpanzees and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I've got at least one King Kong on my monster shelf now.
Nice.
I like the movie with Jack Black too. Yeah, which I don't know why people don't like that, but I've not run into many people who really loved it.
Oh, I one of these days you gotta talk to Adam, because King Kong 05 is his favorite movie of all time, and when he growing up, when he watched that movie, that was like the movie that inspired him to wanting to make movies of his own.
That's really neat. And it actually wasn't until much later that I saw the original King Kong. And then I think we were talking the other day that the first Godzilla movie I really, really saw was Godzilla versus Gigan in the theater.
All right, I remember you mentioned to this the day before yesterday about when you watched Godzilla versus Gigan back then. I did want to say, what was it like actually watching like an old school Godzilla movie back in the day in a U.S. theater?
Man, it's funny too, because when it happened, it was brand new. So like, it wasn't even like, oh wow, I'm watching a classic Godzilla movie.
Right.
Like, I was like 6, so it was basically just staring at Godzilla and hopefully not making too much noise for the people around us. It was just watching in awe, because to a kid, when you see Godzilla on the screen, it's almost like he's life size. And you don't know that Godzilla is not actually on Monster Island at that point.
Yeah, despite the film's misleading title.
Yeah.
and
like Godzilla vs. Megalon's misleading German title, King Kong
and the Demons from Outer Space.
That's what we talked about that too. Everything in Germany was King Kong.
Yeah, either King or Frankenstein.
So apparently, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is called King Kong vs. Godzilla in Germany. So what is the real King Kong vs. Godzilla called in Germany?
Obviously, Frankenstein versus King Kong versus Godzilla.
Actually, I'm gonna look that up. I never.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up too.
I never found that out.
Or imagine, like, for Frankenstein Conquers the World, the German title is just called Frankenstein the Movie, or just like Super Frankenstein. Frankenstein Superstar. Frankenstein, yes, this one actually has the monster.
Let me see. I'm not finding anything yet. Are you?
I found a YouTube video of a German steelbook review of King Kong versus Godzilla.
I don't think it's going to be helpful, David.
And it's from Tyler Preston from
No, okay, yes. We don't want to bring in, and we don't want to bring up certain people's names on here, but yeah. It's all right.
Apparently, the title of the German release is Die Rückkehr des King Kong. I have no idea what that means, so thank God for Google Translate.
Wrath of King Kong, I'm assuming, or like the destruction of King Kong, or I don't know, Attack of King Kong.
Ooh.
But it leaves Godzilla out of the title, right?
Yeah.
Typical.
And it's under the label Kaiju Classics, so it's good to know that the Germans are recognizing Japanese monster movies as kaiju films.
Interesting. I wonder if they also recognize the term Jaeger as well for all Japanese robots in that case.
At this point, I would kind of think so.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So I guess the next question I had for you is, like, what other Godzilla films have you been fortunate enough to see in the theater?
I saw 85 in the theater,
mm-hmm.
and I think that was it, like, as they happened.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just that. So there was a big run of not seeing them in the theater, and I don't know why, because I know they were here in the theater between, 76 and 85.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I don't remember now.
Okay. Well, the other question, I guess, did you have the opportunity to watch Godzilla 2000 and Godzilla 2014 when they were in theater?
Oh, yeah, Godzilla 2000 I did see, because I was living here in Chicago at that point.
Uh-huh. I do want to
ask...
And
that was...
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that one, too. And people don't like that either, so I guess I have wonky taste in Godzilla films.
I forgot, David, did we ever talk about Godzilla 2000 in our top 15 favorites list?
Oh yeah, it was on my list.
Ah, okay, yeah, definitely. I definitely have a lot of fond memories, considering that was so far that's been the only Japanese Godzilla film I've ever seen in theaters.
I regret not watching that film in theaters. I could have watched it, but for some reason I don't know why I didn't pressure my dad to go watch it.
Uh huh. Oh,
so I had to make 2014 be my first Godzilla film to watch in theaters.
I do want to ask you, Chris, what, in terms of like comparing the experience of watching Gigan in 85 in the theater, was there a difference between watching those Godzilla movies in the theater back then and watching Godzilla 2000 in 2014?
Yeah, 2000, I didn't really notice any actual kaiju fans at the 2000 showing I went to. Uh-huh. And in fact, the person I went with was just making fun of it the whole time, but he was the only person I had for a ride.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went and put up with it.
Uh-huh.
And, 85 was strange. That actually was my first date. Which
I
was
see.
Funny. And so it was kind of a cross between paying attention to her and paying attention to Godzilla, and not quite being sure which one I should pay more attention to.
the greatest challenge that comes in every fanboy's life.
Exactly. And 2014 was like all nerds and cheering, and like when you'd see Star Wars movies or something big like that, everyone knew that it was an event. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone was aware of exactly what that movie was. And I got to see an advanced screening because of a friend of mine, and it was the same way, like, especially when he finally used his atomic breath, like, the entire place erupted like it was at a wrestling show.
Uh-huh.
like Cena finally hits his big move and somebody goes down and the crowd erupts. It was just like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like everyone was wearing Godzilla shirts and like Godzilla stuff. Like, you know, that was much more seen as a big event this time.
Mm-hmm. And
which is good that it didn't suck.
Right, absolutely. In terms of like how what being a Godzilla fan what being a Godzilla fan was like before the internet and afterwards, do you think the internet has had that big of an impact to where that probably caused this big change in experience between 2000 and 2014?
Oh yeah, totally. I think the internet's almost completely responsible for it, because you had people who were Godzilla fans and rabid Godzilla fans, but still had no idea about Godzilla fandom, which is maybe hard to believe for us, but these were like people who had been in a vacuum. They loved Godzilla. They loved all the movies. They knew everything about him, but they didn't know there was a convention.
Mm-hmm.
And what is this? The 23rd year for G-Fest or 22nd year?
I think 23rd, I believe. No,
yeah.
I think 22nd.
One of those two.
Yeah, one of those numbers.
and people who are really, really big Godzilla fans still had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had no idea there was a Godzilla convention until I saw that documentary on Animal Planet in 2004.
What documentary on Godzilla Animal Planet?
Kind of, sort of. It was a document. It's on YouTube. It's called It Came from Japan, and it's basically just, a documentary talking about the whole franchise from beginning to end.
Oh, interesting.
I've seen that documentary before on YouTube as well.
Kind of funny that it was on Animal Planet.
Well, I guess nowadays almost anything is on Animal Planet and barely has anything to do with Animal Planet, like the History Channel.
It was a part of some sort of show called Animal Icons. I know they did one on Garfield.
Uh-huh.
And Godzilla was like the one that just coincidentally came up.
It's like, well, shit, we ran out of animals. What are we going to do? Let's go do with the radioactive dinosaur. Fine, go ahead.
Kind of an animal.
Yes.
Sort of.
He's based on an animal.
But then did they do a King Kong one?
I have no idea.
No, that would be BS because, King Kong, he's a straight-up gorilla.
Well, he's giant, though.
Right, but then so is Godzilla, but then Godzilla's a made-up animal. He's a made-up dinosaur.
Yeah. I don't think our nerd logic's going to solve this.
Actually, yeah. There was one about King Kong, and the Godzilla episode was the first episode of that show.
Ah, all right.
Yeah, so
apparently Spider-Man and Batman got their own.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Jaws did Star Wars creatures.
Okay, Star Wars creatures sounds
Christmas
pretty
animals.
interesting. But I can imagine Batman, he's like, I am not an animal!
Political animals. Now that's curious.
What is like the elephant and the donkey?
Wow, that's just too much of a stretch for me.
So, David, do you happen to have any questions for good old Chris here? Because I'm running out.
For some reason, as the chat continues, my questions slowly begin to deteriorate, because I remember I had, a bunch of questions, but they were mainly questions that I originally wanted to ask Chris Mowry when you guys did that interview with him.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so his name's also Chris.
So I bet you when I mentioned, we're going to have Chris Martinez here, he probably thought I was talking about Chris Mowry.
No, not really, though. I mean, I was familiar who James Biggie was, but I haven't heard who Chris Martinez was until you showed me the Night of the
Fire
Beast images. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Oh, well, don't worry. Nobody's really familiar with me. But if you want to ask me Chris Mowry's questions, I'll still answer them.
I'll try. You just illustrate, right? You don't write the comics or the stories, do you?
what I would do, I actually, I feel like a dick now because I totally didn't mention really my writing partner, John. I came up with a pretty detailed plot of all the stuff that was going to happen in the book, and with a lot of genre specific stuff. And then my writing partner, John, who is the creator and editor of the English anthology that I mentioned before, he went and then scripted and added stuff. Like he made up the characters who are starring in it totally, and he added a lot of extras that I hadn't thought of. So basically I gave him the ideas and he kind of ran with it and made it readable.
So it's kind of like you
and then I drew it.
So it's kind of like you came up with a treatment and passed those ideas off to your friend who then made the full script then.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it was.
I'm not sure if treatment is also something that's used in the world of comics.
Not usually, but it totally makes sense.
Okay.
How does writing scripts or comments? I mean, comics. I meant comics. Differentiate from like writing a script for like a movie or a show.
From what I've seen with movie scripts, there's no direction as far as like setting or anything, like no details for that. It's just like dialogue. Whereas in a comic book script, it's every panel starts out with a visual description of what's in the panel, then the dialogue or narration or anything else that's going to be in it. So it's more visual based for the artist, so the artist knows what to draw.
So it's way more detailed than you would find in a film script?
Oh, yeah. From the film and TV scripts I've seen, like I said, it's almost all dialogue, and all the scene and settings are described somewhere else. So, but for each comic book page, every single panel has its own description before there's even any dialogue written.
I guess it's because like when it comes to comic books, you have a lot more control over the visual element, whereas with when you're producing a television show or a movie, you kind of have to collaborate with other people, like a set designer or costume department person in charge of the costuming, or even the director himself, or the director of casting. All these people work together to put this vision, to like put all their interpretations of the script together to create a singular vision.
Yeah, and even within comics, though, like James wrote a lot of stuff in, especially in the big monster fight scene, where he would write specific things, and then I drew something totally different, because he knew he wasn't too versed in actual kaiju films like I am, so he would just basically put in something that he thought would be cool, and then I kind of drew something totally different, because I thought that was cooler.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever...
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask if you've ever written a complete comic script by yourself, given that there's like much more visual freedom, especially from an illustrator's standpoint?
Not a complete script, and even when I work with James, I'll be doing the entire book before he scripts it. But even then, I don't really write stuff. If I'm going to be doing the plot and the art, then I'll have it in my head, and then I'll thumbnail it and like do roughs and work it up that way instead of writing down what's in each panel like a normal writer would.
Ah.
I do want to ask, how did you come to know of this James this James person?
Oh, John?
Oh,
or
John.
James?
Sorry. Yeah, the person who's going to be writing your comic.
So I actually answered a forum ad on a forum called Pencil Jack that was looking for volunteers to draw and write stories in the anthology, and he was the guy who placed the ad. He put together the entire thing with another John, and through working with him as an editor, we just became friends, and I asked him to help with the writing on Fire Beast. specifically because he had no real idea about giant monsters.
Mm-hmm.
But he's really familiar with British cinema, and I kind of wanted a little bit of that Gorgo kind of feel.
Yeah.
Like Gorgo or like Quatermass, kind of more drama-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the balance worked out pretty well, because you've read, the first 18 pages?
Yeah, I remember. I did.
And he gave a lot more life to the characters than I had in my original plot.
I remember there was a lot of backstory, especially with the... I'm not sure if I'm allowed to go into detail, but...
Yeah, that's totally cool.
All right, well, there was that... I forgot, what was that, World War II backstory? Or World War One?
There was actually World War One backstory.
One, yeah, sorry, I apologize. And I feel like that really gave a lot of depth to that one character in particular.
Yeah, and it also worked out because, as you know in the description, it lists like the weird like animated flashback scene, which that one page was penciled by another contributor to the World War One graphic novel,
mm-hmm.
Neil McClements, who's also in the UK. And we just wanted to have him in the book just to have him. And his style is really cartoony, so we just turned it into like some psychedelic flashback scene.
Right, where it's kind of like, it may not be an accurate representation, but it's like, it's kind of like a representation from this person's own mind, like what he remembers in his eyes. And
it's something, like even if you're just flipping through the book, that something's different about that page.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's something separate from the rest of the story. Yeah. So, and that was fun because Neil's a fantastic artist, and it was really fun to work over his pencils for that.
Hmm. Let's see, what was Oh, so you mentioned that John, this will be the first time John will be attending G-Fest with you this year, right?
Yeah, I think it's one of the few times he's actually been over in the States.
Oh, and has he ever been to a convention before in general?
Yeah, he's been to comic conventions, especially with promoting To End All Wars. He's been doing a lot of appearances. So, but he's never seen anything like G-Fest, I don't think.
Uh-huh. Do you think he's most likely unaware of this large fan base that giant monsters like Godzilla and Gamera have?
For the most part, yeah. He knows about it from me, but I don't think he knows exactly
the scale of it.
Yeah, or the intensity of it.
Uh-huh.
But like last year at G-Fest, I met at least one person from the UK who flew over just for G-Fest. And that was pretty cool. And that guy was blown away. He'd never seen anything like it.
Right. I think I may have also heard about this sort of reaction from the Japanese guests and who come over from Japan, who come to G-Fest for the panels. And from what I understand, I think it was, I forgot who, it was the director of Deep Sea Monster Raiga and Deep Sea Monster Raigo. I think he may have mentioned, I could be completely wrong, that I guess people are much more expressive much more expressive when it comes to their fandoms than people are in Japan, and that it's kind of like it's very not shocking, but it's like kind of like a big like wow moment to see so many people just like showing their absolute love like out in the open for Godzilla here in America at least.
Yeah, I think it's still seen more as like kids or like weird nerd people stuff over there. I don't think they even really have many. I know they don't have a regular Godzilla convention. I think they've done a couple for special events, but there's nothing like G-Fest in Japan, even as far as I know.
Yeah, and like even from like in terms of Japanese entertainment, as from what I've understand, from like contrary to popular belief, like anime and manga and those sorts of things, they're not like the sort of things that you see everywhere in Japan. It's still kind of like a little niche little thing in their own country of origin in terms of how much it's displayed in that country.
And quite frequently looked down on still.
Yeah, because I understand from what I understand, again, like based on what stuff I've learned about in terms of their culture, based on what I've read and what I've researched, in Japan, Japanese culture is a much more emphasis on getting a career and getting just focusing like the majority of your life on strictly on your career and very little else, very little time for anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And like I've had this discussion before with friends who don't realize, they might be anime and manga fans here, and they say they're otaku,
mm-hmm.
which over here means like nerd. But in Japan, if you say you're an otaku, then people look at you like you're, a pervert, or you look down on, like. And Japanese friends of mine say the same thing. Like you would never want to say that to people in Japan.
Yeah, it's kind of essentially a derogatory term.
Yeah,
like someone who is has no life whatsoever.
Yep, and people over here have embraced it as something. Is just like a nerd or a super fan, but it's not really the case.
Anything that could explain for why a large majority of the profit off of that sort of Japanese entertainment is mostly based on sales in America?
That's a good question, but I'm not real sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes back to actually what you said about people being more overt about their fandom here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people like it because it's not American.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of like the reason why I myself was drawn to anime back in the like mid to late 90s when Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing, and all that other good stuff was showing on. I saw that it immediately caught my attention. I was like, wow, this is something that looks so different from everything else I've seen before.
Yeah, and then you probably traced it back to where it came from.
Right. Eventually, with time.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny how when you're a little kid and you're exposed to all this foreign material, you generally don't think of it as being foreign until eventually you become smart enough to realize, hey, wait a minute. This didn't come from America.
Exactly.
I mean, God knows how long it took me to realize that Godzilla was a Japanese thing. Because where I live, like Asian people are just common here. So it's it never crossed my mind that these movies, which have nothing but Asian people, were from a country that wasn't America.
Did you ever wonder why all the aliens in the Asian movies look like Asian people?
Nope.
And all the aliens in American and English films looked more like Americans.
Right, I should have known. I think what? It wasn't until Godzilla It wasn't until Godzilla 2000, which, to give me credit, I was 8 years old at that point. Did I realize that I started noticing the lip syncing, how the words weren't exactly matching the voices, looking at it on the big screen, and it wasn't until that moment that I realized, oh wait, this is Japanese, or this is Asian.
Yeah, and then it's like that moment when you realize, wait a minute, they're not actually wrestling each other. They're not fighting. It's the same thing.
If this is all fake, what else is fake?
Yeah. Oh, and then you always have the friend who are like, oh, they're not really saying that. Look, you can see his lips are different. I'm like, oh, yeah, we know that. It doesn't make a difference. We still like it.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. I've met some relatives. I have always come across family, friends, and relatives who, whenever Godzilla comes into the conversation, if ever so rarely, the one thing they quickly come to make fun of is the dubbing or the lip syncing. I was like, yes, I get it. I understand. Yes, I get it, all right, yes. The lips don't match the words. Can we move on with that and, talk about the actual movies?
Yeah, and they don't, because they don't know it. And like I said with the wrestling thing, if you're a wrestling fan and you talk to somebody who's not a wrestling fan, oh, that's fake, right? Who doesn't know it's fake?
Right, but it's it's even with wrestling, it's kind of like movies, where it's of course, with movies, there's a predetermined ending, but it's the journey there that's the fun part.
Yeah. And, I know that guy in the Godzilla movie's not really speaking English. It's some guy in a sound booth, but that doesn't make a difference.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you're still enjoying, you're still getting the gist of what that character is supposed to be saying, anyways.
Yeah. So, people talking down about fandom is a totally different episode, I imagine.
Right. Let's see. I'm trying to figure how we got to this point, because this all started with John and how he was coming to G-Fest, and from there on we talked about like the expression of people's interests in different countries.
Yeah. Yep. And I still don't think he's seen that much. I know he did some research. I made him watch Gorgo at least a little bit.
Oh, he's never seen Gorgo before, huh?
Not before I had him watch it.
Isn't Gorgo like one of their national icons? Up there with like Doctor Who and Mary Poppins.
I'd be hard pressed to name any English people I know that know Gorgo, actually.
Uh-huh.
I think people know Quatermass more than Gorgo, and not many people know Quatermass anymore.
I suppose Judge Dredd is kind of like Judge Dredd and Doctor Who are like the big main English fictional creations over there. Yeah,
and Dredd's not that common knowledge like Doctor Who is either.
Yeah, I mean Doctor Who especially ever since it's not a reboot, but I guess relaunch from 2000. Ever since that started in 2005, now Doctor Who is everywhere.
Yeah, well, because they had cute Doctor Who's that everyone could really like instead of the mean, ugly Doctor Who's.
Which now we've gone back to, I guess.
That's what really did it, I think.
Yeah. The pretty boy Doctor Who.
Now you see who your real fandom is.
Right, yeah. Especially live with the 50th anniversary special with Day of the Doctor, you have John Hurt as the War Doctor, and he looks at that 10 and 11, he's like, oh no, don't tell me you're me. He's like, what's wrong with being old? What am I going through, a midlife crisis or something?
I always thought Matt Frank should cosplay a Doctor Who.
Really?
Look at him. He totally has a Doctor Who look to him, doesn't he?
Huh, I never thought about that.
Now you can't stop thinking about it.
No, it's just like, which one would he make? Which one would he look good for?
I know he grabbed one of my Doctor Who Godzilla prints last year, which I thought was... And, like, he just ran by my table and he's like, I gotta get one of these. How much? And I'm like, just take it.
Like, have you looked in the mirror lately? You're Matt Frank.
Yeah, like, I didn't want to be all like, oh my god, it's Matt Frank. But like, fuck, take it. Yeah, Matt Frank. You know, and in the back of your head when stuff like that happens as an artist or a creator, you're thinking, take it, because then someone you work for might see it.
Right.
You know, that shit doesn't happen, but you know.
It's nice thoughts. It's a possibility.
Oh, speaking of creators, I told you about the panel we're going to be running.
Right, creator-owned kaijus and comics.
Yes. So John, actually, it was funny because John actually emailed JD or someone from G-Fest about running the panel because another friend of mine, Keith Foster, from the kaiju comic Kodoja, he ran a comic panel last year, and he wasn't doing it this year, so John said maybe we should try and do something because it's fairly easy to get a panel, and he emailed, and we didn't hear...
I would beg to differ, but that's another story for another day.
Oh, really? Because it took like 4 months or 5 months to get a reply back, which I'm sure is kind of what you were going to say.
It's a different story, but I'll share it if you're interested when you're done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because I know last year Keith emailed and he's like, hey, can I do a panel? And they're like, sure, tell us what it is and we'll set it up. And when they eventually got back to us, they said, you know, they just lost the email, but it's all good. And I guess it's going to be Friday on G-Fest weekend. We're not sure of the exact time, but we've got myself and John, Keith Foster, James if he shows up, and we actually got Jeff Zarnow who's going to be joining us. Right,
and like you guys must have been like grateful to have like a really popular artist like Jeff Zarnow there to gather people's attention.
And that's totally why I asked him, because I had been talking to him about future Fire Beast cover stuff. And I just messaged him and said, "Do you want to be in this panel?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll probably be drunk." Like, all right.
Any chance that he may do an alternate cover for Fire Beast?
Not this one, but for the second book, I'm probably going to have him actually do the cover.
Nice.
Yeah, which will be really cool and perfect for the Japanese version.
Yeah. Well, if you guys are looking for a moderator for that panel, if I'm not busy, I have a little available, there's something there.
That depends if you show up. If you show up, totally.
True.
But then...
Dude, to moderate a panel at G-Fest would be, like, incredibly amazing, but it's like, we'll see about that, but, it's like, if that ever happens, I would love to do that, but, it's not, I don't want to seem like I'm forcing myself upon you.
No, actually, that would take a lot of pressure off of us.
Really? Now, is it hard to find a moderator?
We hadn't thought of it. Until you just mentioned it.
So it's like, do I just, like, come up on stage like, so, you guys, you drop pictures, right?
Yeah, you want to have more of a southern accent.
You see here, you draw them giant monsters, see, right? And you create your monsters, and how difficult is that? It's got to be pretty easy, right?
Yeah,
I reckon.
And then you play your banjo.
But the ding dong, ding dong, ding dong dong. I might as well bring in Dylan McCandless. He's the true Southerner here. He's from Tennessee.
The problem with you moderating is that you might have been our audience.
Well, like the one person here, like, does anyone have any questions? I walked off the podium and into the audience. I raised my hand, and then I walked back to the podium. Yes, you, sir. I walked back to the seat. What's the most hardest part about making your own comics? Walk back to the podium. What do you guys have to say about that? Walk down back to the seat to listen to you guys.
You just made more work for yourself. It would be hilarious if we could do it like, you ever watch Monster Island Buddies?
I think I may have seen a episode or two a while ago. That's like a stop motion thing on YouTube, right?
It's not even stop motion. It's the guy, like, you can see the guy moving the figures around and stuff. It's hilarious and vulgar. But he actually did an episode from G-Fest where he just went into an empty room where they were holding panels and had the Godzilla figure that he uses in Gamera, like, do a panel. And it was hilarious because there was nobody there.
Right.
Let me see if I can find that. And he was, like, walking around G-Fest filming for Monster Island Buddies.
Didn't he get a panel himself?
That I don't know.
I think I may have seen his name or the title Monster Island Buddies on the schedule for last year.
Really? I wonder if he actually did that panel. Because when he shows it, there's nobody in the room. I'm going to send it to you right now.
All right. I'll check it out after we're done recording. So yeah, with the panel, I gotta say congratulations on obtaining your own panel. I really hope that it'll become a big success for you guys.
But?
Okay, so I do want to get into this where it's like, so we had an associate who knew someone we knew someone who knew J.D. Lee, and we promised not to give this person's name out. But this person liked our show so much, the Sons of Sarazawa podcast, which is something that David and I do, along with Bill, a.k.a. Zazbar, Adam Noyes, and Dylan McCandless, a.k.a. Super DM64. The five of us have been doing this, the Sons of Sarazawa podcast since, I think, August of 2013. And basically, we're just five Godzilla fans who just shoot the shit and, talk about whatever's on the top of our heads, and it usually leads to just, the most batshit insane conversations. And, we have a small yet dedicated audience who, I guess enjoys listening to five insane individuals ramble about for 2.5 hours every 2 weeks. And we had a person who liked our show so much that he asked J.D. Lee to get us a panel for this year's G-Fest. And this was, like, way back in, like, I want to say July or August. I want to say August. And And the JD Lee said, yeah, I'll get you guys a panel. And so we got a panel. But we decided to hold off on announcing it because we wanted to make sure all the details were straight and that this was going to be a for sure thing because we didn't want to announce anything right off the bat and then, embarrass ourselves. So then in our second Christmas special for, December 2014, we announced that we were going to have a panel at this year's G-Fest. And then JD Lee contacted our associate who told us that our panel was canceled because it was at that point, months later, that JD Lee realized our, I guess you can say, our vulgar and inappropriate, the vulgar, inappropriate nature of our show, and thought that it was very inappropriate for G-Fest because even if we did do a panel where we didn't curse or we didn't say anything naughty, the fact that they didn't want to be associated with our brand per se, and we didn't want anyone like coming in, like let's say a little boy who were to come in and he would watch our panel, and then it would inspire him to watch our show, and then God knows what happens to him or his mother or his parents, and they'll probably complain saying, how dare you have these sorts of people here at this convention, or stuff like that. Basically, we were not the family-friendly type, and they didn't want, anything to come out of it. So as soon as we pretty much had to, tell everybody, yep, well, our panel was canceled.
No. Well, it would be awesome if you could moderate ours then.
Yeah, it would actually, yeah. Although it would be kind of very amusing to get, like, all 5 of us just there just to say, like, hey, look, we're still part of a panel somehow.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Zornow is like on a panel and sort of drunk, because he's pretty outspoken on Facebook. And, super nice guy. But I think it's going to be a fun personality to have.
Definitely, yeah. From, like, the 2 panels, I think it was one panel I saw him in, which was the, basically Godzilla in comic books, panel, where I saw him with Chris Mallory and Matt Frank and God, I can't remember. I forgot. I can't believe I forgot the editor of the IDW Godzilla books, Bobby Kernell. Bobby Kernell.
You're not getting anything now.
What's that? Oh,
you're getting anything now.
Oh shit. Well, yeah, Jeff Zornow, he really knows a lot of his stuff. I mean, when he gets into like the background of what in the sorts of like different animes and mangas, stuff that I've never even heard of, that he talks about all this stuff and how a lot of stuff like acted as his inspiration. I was like, the guy definitely knows his stuff and definitely can give like a big old detailed map of how like the things that influenced or helped perfected his craft.
Yeah, totally. He knows a lot about a lot of stuff, like going way back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and again, like having someone who's so outspoken on the panel full of artists who are probably pretty quiet, except for James.
Yeah, it would definitely help to have like that, at least one dominating personality.
Yep. So we'll see. But again, there's probably going to be liquor and stuff involved, so who knows what.
Let's make sure we keep any bottles away from Zornow in case he decides to throw one at the audience.
No, wait, that'll make news.
Yeah.
He might not get invited back, but it'll be memorable.
Yeah. Again, he'll just have that same Bender from Futurama moment. I'll have my own panel with blackjack and hookers. You know what? Forget the panel at that point.
And the blackjack.
By this point, you might as well just let the liquor do the thinking.
It's like, fine, I'll have a panel at that other convention down the street in Chicago.
I wonder what the panels are like there at Exotica.
How to make the perfect dildo? I don't know.
I actually have a friend who does that for a living.
Wow.
Yeah.
Props to him.
Her, actually.
Her. Okay. Props to her. Emphasis on prop.
Ah.
Ha ha.
Ah.
Dangly parts.
The humor's dropped to the level at which I should probably go.
Well, it is getting pretty late. So, David, do you have anything else to ask of Chris before we wrap things up?
No, those were the best questions I could have came up with.
And good questions they were indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of another episode of Shuwatch Super Dynamic Ultra Force Go. I have been your host, Andres Perez, a.k.a. KaijuNoir. This has been David Joshua Hernandez, a.k.a. Gorizard.
I have nothing else to say but bye.
And last but certainly not least, the first appearance of our guest and good friend, Christopher Martinez. So, Christopher, where can people find you? And where can people find your work? And when can they expect to see more of it?
Well, right now I'm on Facebook mainly. My website is thechristophermartinez.com, and that has links to my Facebook profiles and everything else. And you can see my art. And mainly Fire Beast will be debuting at G-Fest. After that, we're going to try and hopefully find a regular publisher. Mm-hmm. But we have a limited run of print copies exclusive to G-Fest this year.
So if you've liked what you've heard here on the podcast, be sure to find it there at this year's G-Fest in Chicago on July. So, anyway, as for Biggie's stuff, you can always check out and like the Robot God Akamatsu official Facebook page. You can definitely support Biggie and purchase, prints or any prints of his artwork on, I believe it's Society 6. I think that's what that website's called. I had a link. Yeah, I had a link in the last episode with Biggie, so I'll put that same link and information here as well. And you can also find James Biggie on DeviantArt as Super Convoy. What was it? Super Convoy 80. Darn it! Oh my God, I'm a horrible friend. Super Convoy 75. That's you can find him. That's where you can find a lot of his artwork there on DeviantArt. So yeah, let's see. I've already pimped out a lot of stuff. I guess I have an upcoming review for the 30-minute love letter to 80s action movie Kung Fury that I did with Dylan McCandless. Look forward to an upcoming review for season 1 of the Breaking Bad spin-off, Better Call Saul, and check out my upcoming review for Godzilla vs. Biollante. And other than that, and be sure to stay tuned for more installments of the top 15 favorite Godzilla films that David and I recorded almost like a year and a half ago that David's finally getting around to uploading one number at a time. So with all that said, thank you so much for joining us on this very special episode. We couldn't have done it without Chris and James here. Thank you again, Chris, for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and you're free to be on the show anytime you're free.
Awesome.
So with that said, thank you very much for joining us, you, the audience, and until next time, everybody, take care.